Tango 1 at the top, we are at pop-up vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action. Find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're doing that with the Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more. Welcome to the Tango 1 podcast. I am Tony Smith, retired cop and SWAT team leader, currently the owner of the Garage Gym and Tango 1 Solutions. I'm joined by my friend, Garage Gym trainer and fireman, amateur stuntman, Casey Wright. Our mission is to challenge you and guide you to create an immediate action plan against your problems and your weaknesses. We want you to do more and be more. Today, our guests are Matt and Steph Sequin, founders of Chasing Hazel, which is a wonderful organization dedicated to creating opportunities for people with disabilities to be welcomed and accepted everywhere. Matt and I have known each other for a very, very long time, back from the Turtle Club days. We've already been dropping some pretty funny situations. Then we played AKO together for a brief point, and then played in the Old Man Football League against each other, of which I don't think I ever beat you ever.
I think there might have been some semi-finals.
Championship lost. Yeah. Not that I remember, but the day my son was born, I went and played you guys in the championship, and we lost.
Come on.
Yeah.
But he's not bitter.
My wife let me leave the hospital.
How old's your son? Wait.
And he had 3 catches.
It's been a long
6
time.
yards, 1 touchdown.
This is all coming out.
And Steph, I don't know if we've ever really formally met, but through the Cruise and Brews and through just the network of gyms and all level of my friend John Mack, we've kind of like connected. It's been cool, and I love what you guys are doing. That's why we wanted to have you guys here today. So we love to cover is like we want to create awareness around what you guys are doing, and maybe some more support. And hopefully more support. But honestly, I want you guys, because I feel like there's so much I don't know about this subject, and I want you guys to kind of educate Casey and I, and then through the communities, and that's just like a big ripple effect that just continues to go. So
Awesome.
Let's roll with it.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so tell me about like Chasing Hazel. How did this come about? The backstory on it.
I'll let you go with that one. This is how she gets started. So yeah.
Okay, so our daughter is going to be 9 in January, which is crazy. Time goes by fast. And so we didn't expect a Down syndrome diagnosis when we got pregnant. We had a whole lot of things going on, and we finally get pregnant, and then this baby comes. Like it's kind of a long story, but we didn't have genetic testing. We had no idea she was going to have Down syndrome, and so all of a sudden, you go for your ultrasounds and things, and they start to pick up on these like markers, and it's like you get these little tidbits, but we never knew for sure, right? And so we carried on with this pregnancy, and we just didn't know, and we just knew that there were things we weren't going to know until she was born. And so it was very, very stressful pregnancy. We knew that Down syndrome was on the table. We were not thrilled about that originally. It was so surprising and just so unknown for us that we just kind of had to go through the grieving process a little bit, I think, which is fine. And so then she was born, and we had to go to London to deliver her because she needed surgery right when she was born. So she had surgery when she was 28 hours old. She had issues with her bowels that they needed to fix, and it needed to happen right away, and Windsor wasn't able to do it here. So I left my house, just to give you some perspective on the situation. I left my house at 4 a.m. with some complications in my pregnancy on my 35th week. And I didn't come home for 8 weeks after that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The doctor wouldn't let me come home at all.
And your daughter is Hazel, right?
My daughter is Hazel, yeah.
To clear it up.
Yeah. So, but you asked me how it started. So it's like, it goes way back to when she was born is basically, I think, how it all started. So then it was just a super crazy time. We were super stressed, to say the very least about it. I mean, we were just not okay. But anyway,
I think
we just
too
weren't.
is that like you're going down the road of like having a kid, right? So it's like, you're excited and all these things. So then you're going down this road and then you hear news and all of a sudden it's like, okay, it could be a hard right, and that's the way you're thinking at the time. So, and like we talked about before, it's like, we don't have a lot of experience before we had Hazel with any real disability to a large degree, because it wasn't really part of our family. It wasn't part of something that we had going on, right? So we knew there was a possibility, but we didn't know it was a for sure thing until she was born, right? So
and it's just to be completely honest, it's not what you want to hear.
Yeah, sure.
It's not what you go into your pregnancy thinking, oh, good, I can't wait till I, hear that my kid's going to have Down syndrome.
Well,
like,
right.
You just don't go into it like that, right?
I mean, actually, it's kind of like the opposite. Like when having had 2 kids, you go in and you hear like, everything looks great, normal, with the quotes, and like, you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
And then you have that discussion on the car ride home. What would we do? Like, how would that come about? And I'm sure that's some of the hard things you guys had to talk about.
Yeah. And we always
It is, yeah. 100%.
And we always knew, like, no matter what, like for us, and everybody's got their own choices. No matter what the diagnosis is, it was going to be our kid. So we knew for sure, like whatever the reality of that was, it was our reality. And doesn't mean that we didn't have some hard days though, right? Like we didn't sit there and have that grieving process. And there was a time that we kind of had a real good idea that Hazel was going to have Down syndrome. Like we had a test done in Windsor to check her heart. They talk about like I guess it's like an inline kind of, for markers for Down syndrome when you're having a baby, right? So they said, okay, well, she's got these markers that we can see, but, we're not sure. And, there's tests you can do. And we just chose not to have those tests.
We didn't have any genetic testing. So we never had a for sure answer. In hindsight, I don't really know how it all happened. I think it all happened so fast. We just kind of said, nah, it's okay. We don't, we just don't want to do extra stuff. It's fine. It's fine. We don't need to do it. What are the odds? Yeah. And so we just kind of didn't do it. And then
we were in Windsor for the test, and they said, okay, the heart looks great, right? And we already knew that she had an issue with her bowel. So there was, so then we ended up in London for, tests, and it was more routine, right? It was just kind of, we knew we were going to have to go to London for, they call it like antenatal, which is like they keep you there so the baby doesn't come out, right? Until it's time for the baby to come out. Yeah. No. So we were on there, I think it was like 2 weeks we were there. So, so as part of it is we went there and we were going for testing, and, we were just pretty relaxed. And then we were in a room and some doctors came in and they're like, okay, so Hazel's heart. Okay, so she's going to need surgery.
Well, we didn't know it was Hazel, and we didn't know it was the girl at that point. But
sorry. Yeah. I look back now.
Still, I know it's so hard. They're like, your daughter's name is Hazel.
Exactly.
This is what's happening.
So as part of it is like,
that's how the doctors say. That's how being married is like.
Hey,
exactly.
Hey, correction. I'm the only woman in the room here. That's not cool. I feel attacked, personally attacked.
So they said it is. So they said the baby's heart. Well, there's a hole in the baby's heart. The baby's heart's going to need surgery at some point in time within the first 6 months of life. This is what we're going to do.
They're just
they're going
telling you all the things.
Stop.
Yeah, slow down.
You guys need to stop talking. We have no idea what you're talking about. We were told that the heart was solid. So at that point in time, that's when the fork in the road went, and we started going, okay, there's a really good chance that this baby has Down syndrome.
So is this one, like these things go hand in hand together? Okay.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of markers when you're pregnant for a baby with Down syndrome. There's certain ones that are like more of an indicator that it's like a better chance that your kid would have Down syndrome. So like the bowel thing was like a really big one, but that isolated is not always an indicator. So we were like at that point thinking, okay, if that's just her isolated thing that she has, maybe we are that 1 in 10,000, because that's what you want to believe. Right? That is what you want to believe. And you're hanging your hat on that 1 in 10,000 odds that she's a completely typically developing baby. And she just has this one thing, and then we're going to fix this one thing, and then we're going to go home from the hospital. Like none of this ever happened, and we're not going to have to deal with this ever again. It's going to be gone. That's where we were at when we went into that appointment for the double checking the heart thing that was supposed to be normally developing here. But, anyways, I get what happened here now after all. You want to see normal. All the texts, everybody, you want to see normal. And so if you just move the little thing a little this way or a little that way, you get a normal glimpse. And that's what they're saying. Like, oh, no, everything's fine, because they don't want to see the hole. They don't want to see the problems, right? So I 100% get what happened here. It was just unfortunate that when we went to London, they did find it. It was actually a moderate hole in her heart, and it was going to cause her significant problems when she was born. And so that after that appointment, so that was another, like, a heart defect is a really, really common one for babies with Down syndrome to have. Like, it's very common. So, like, after we got that news, it was kind of like,
this is baby, yeah.
Okay, so there wasn't a lot of talking in the car when we went home from that appointment. It was very stoic and quiet, and we don't have to linger in this space for long, but
but that's kind of where we came to the realization that there's a better chance of that happening rather than of not, right? So I don't want to say we lost hope or whatever you want to call it, but we started to kind of say, okay, well, we need to be prepared for what this looks like. And then, so we went through
immediately though.
No, we went through that process. There was, a period
really
of time,
hard.
some days that we stayed home and we stayed in bed and we just kind of bonded together and figured it out. And then I think, there was just a point in time where it was like, okay, well, she's going to come, or it's going to come, and it's going to be our baby.
This is what it is, and like, let's move forward and deal with it, right?
Matt said, like, to me, he looked at me, and we had tried to have a baby for 5 years. It took 5 years to get pregnant. So it was like, listen, you're going to be a mommy. Like, that's the main thing. And like, we're going to be parents. And if somebody walked up to you, in a hospital or on the street or whatever, and said, like, here, I have this baby that has, Down syndrome and a bowel problem and a heart problem and there's no mommy out there to love it, you'd be the first one in line, like, give me the baby. Yeah. I will love the baby. And so he's like, that's going to be our life. It's fine, And so that really was comforting to me.
That's incredible.
Going through that. Yeah.
It's a great way to, like, that's how, like, you can shift your mind and take what seems like a negative, it's an unfortunate thing to say, but seems like a negative and turn into a positive. So she's born, and then it's so with Down syndrome, is it like at the start, is there much different, or is it become as
just
she
with
gets
her
older?
Health things that she had, like immediately the surgery after birth and the heart problem, like that was really taxing for her until she was about 5.5 months old, and we had to get that repaired. So before she was 6 months old, she had 2 surgeries. This is not uncommon for a baby with Down syndrome to have some sort of medical intervention at that age. But there are babies with Down syndrome that are born, like, they have no medical issues whatsoever. So, which is so cool. Hazel was a rock star. She handled it. We handled it. Yeah. We're here to talk about it, so it's all good. But yeah, other than those things, I would say having a baby with Down syndrome is like just having a baby. It's like having a baby. And they do all the same things. There's really not a lot of extra.
And we were in London for 6 weeks, and when she was born, they kind of like held her up, and it was just like, okay, and like, because we already had to resign the fact that she was going to have Down syndrome, but I didn't know if it was a boy or girl. So I like looked at the crotch, looked at the face, and said, okay, let's go, right? So it's kind of like, boy or girl? Okay, girl. Okay, then I looked, okay, she has Down syndrome, because I knew when I saw her that she had Down syndrome.
Then it was like, we knew that moment of just show me my baby. And I was like, okay, she has it. He goes, she's perfect. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
but then they whisked her away, right? And that was the difference, right? And I know there's a lot of parents that have to deal with that because of
different
issues that
issues
some babies have, right? So she was in the NICU and she didn't leave for 6 weeks. So that part was different, not being around people. Well, we had great families that were there all the time, but we stayed at the Ronald McDonald House and found appreciation for what they do.
Such a cool organization too. Oh, so good.
As part of it, and friends, right? Like, Joe and Sanford and all the guys, right? Like, those guys,
we had maybe 2 days of 8 weeks. I'm not kidding you. Yeah. And we were in London, so right 2 hours away. We had 2 days of 8 weeks where there was not one visitor. In 8 weeks, we had somebody every day. My mom would come for 5 p.m. just to bring us dinner, right? And stay, not even see Hazel, because it was like she was sometimes we couldn't even see her. Right. But just like stuff. It was just incredible to see people band together and just support us.
And we realize how fortunate we are for that, right? And, and then how's things evolved with that is kind of like, like a bit of a segue into the charity itself.
Right. This is like totally the lead in to like why we do all the things we do. It's a long story, but it definitely gets us where we need to be.
So as part of it is with Hazel, we've been very fortunate. We have a great support group, family and friends, and, you look in the community about what people are doing. And I think part of us knew that we wanted to do something now that we've been given this gift of Hazel and, her diagnosis and really what it is now. Like, I wouldn't trade it in for the world, right? Like, I wouldn't change a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what she was able to kind of make us realize is things that we wanted to do to help others, right? Like what we had and what we were able to offer, like what we were given based on our family and friends is, okay, well, what can we do?
So
how can we
for that? So when you guys found all this news out and you talk about that process when you guys are putting it all together and this is becoming your reality, at this time, do you know of foundations or resources at the time that you can reach out to or people to reach out to? Like, was there things that you guys were able to do besides just talking internally to, start to find relations with other people?
You go ahead. That's part of it, right?
Not really. Like, so there are organizations now that we know about. At the time when it was all happening, I don't know, maybe it was because we were in London, but I really do feel like London's pretty dialed into the Windsor services, because they immediately hooked us up with the John McGivney Children's Center, which is a rehab center.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's awesome. So they immediately hooked us up with them. So we had that rehab situation, like our therapists were all taken care of basically by the time we got home.
Yeah.
So I think London's pretty dialed in, but other than that, no, honestly, like it was kind of like we were just on our own and sort of trying to navigate these like crazy situation and sort of reaching out, like aside from somebody going like, oh, I know so-and-so who has a kid with Down syndrome, like that maybe you might want to talk to. And then it's like, oh, okay. And I remember like when we were in the NICU, Hazel was so tiny, a mom reached out to me. She was going to have a baby like 3 weeks after, and her baby was going to have this, and she was reaching out to me already. So it was like, it's just so important to have that network of people to be able to tap into, which I don't think we did not have. We had a few people that we could contact.
Yeah. We had I have a friend of mine that lives in Calgary, right? And he has two twin boys with Down syndrome. And his mom used to work for my dad years ago. And I was just like, not even knowing that Hazel had, well, it was Hazel or she had Down syndrome at the time. And I'm like, here, there's a chance, right? And, so I was just venting to him and talking to him. And so he was a resource to me at first, but it was like, I got to call Alberta to try to find somebody that I feel like has gone through or going through the same thing I am. Now, his kids at the time were 10, 11, I think.
I think they were like 13.
Maybe.
But yeah,
right?
much
So you
older.
guys like basically identify a problem.
Yes.
Like, avoid in this whole system.
Exactly.
And then at what point do you decide that you're going to be the ones that fill this void? Like, how does that come about with everything you've got going on? I mean, just as new parents in general, let alone, you've got some extra concerns and
we waited, a little while, but I think all of what we just told you and like the story itself is really what sparked the interest in moving forward with everything that we decided to do. And like knowing that right at the beginning, it's important to connect with somebody or just to know where to go if you're ready to connect, because everybody receives information differently, right? Everybody needs time in a different way and everybody grieves in a different way. And so, we needed time, with that and to experience different people. And so social media was amazing for that, because I immediately went on Instagram and I met so many people that I'm like really good friends with now, like in real life. And we've met in real life, and their kids have Down syndrome, and they're really good resources to us. And so talking to them, what is a gap that we can fill, so that people don't have to feel like this anymore, and like that they can find us and that they're not alone. And so, knowing that's kind of how we.
Yeah, we wanted to be a resource to others, to be able to lean on us if they are or were in the same situation as us, right? So. And then as Hazel started to get a little bit older and going into like preschool and that whole realm, it was something where, there's a lot of changes in funding. And at that time with the John McGivney Center, and there was just a whole lot of things going on. So Steph and I were kind of talking about things that we wanted to do and things that we wanted to kind of position Hazel to be, and then others. And my brother being a lawyer, right? So we were like, maybe we should we should do something. Maybe we should, raise money and do that. And he's like, nonchalantly, well, why don't you just start a foundation on your own? And that way you can kind of figure out what you want to do and then just make immediate impact with it. And we're like, okay.
Well, it sort of organically happened too, because we knew we wanted to fill the gaps. And so we knew that we needed to have an immediate support system set up. And so it was like, let's get like we needed to have like comfort packages and care packages, and that's kind of what we provide now for people who have sicker children in the hospital, or like for lengthy periods of time. But like almost like we needed to create a space where people felt safe to come into, because you don't want to enter into a space, right, if you don't feel safe there. And so that was what we really tried hard to do at the very beginning, was like, how can we create a space where everyone will feel that they can come and just be, just be who they are, and talk about the things that they talk about that other people might not understand. And so that's how like the play group started, right? At the college. St. Clair College hosts it. I mean, obviously because of COVID, we can't do it right now, but it was really a cool place to be. I mean, we had the ECE students volunteering and like hanging out with the kids, playing with the kids. The kids with Down syndrome would come, their siblings would come, the parents would come, the grandparents would come. And we would all just be hanging out, talking, and it was so loud in there. Oh my gosh. But you were looking around and everyone is hugging each other, and everyone is like catching up and talking about doctors and this doctor and school and how their kids doing in school. And it was just like, oh, it made my life. Like every time I was like, this is what I need to be doing right now. Like I miss my people so much. I could cry right now. I miss them so much.
Our moment with the Special Olympics has been like, is like to see that community of people that really support each other and like drive each other everywhere and like go from one sport to the next. And then they all, join up here. And then he's training a Special Olympian right now, doing some like personal training with him, working on the deadlifts and stuff. Shout out to Jared. I know he listens to every episode.
Nice.
But
yes.
It's just like, and that's what he said yesterday. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago when we were in here talking to him? Is like, I just like miss my friends.
Misses the friends. And it is such a cool community. And like, again, the events we've ran and working with Jared, just seeing how excited they are. And when they do get in those events, it's just like, it's incredible to see, and how everyone interacts. And it's just like, it's interacting with people is across the board.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter.
And we were here for the one event, right, that you guys had here when it was, and you see it, right? And I think sometimes we always feel like we're doing it for these athletes. Like, we're doing it for them. We're going to do this for them and make them feel good and get them here. But what we get in return for seeing what they do,
overwhelming.
It's tenfold, right?
That event here was amazing, but the event at GL Heritage, where
that's what I saw you guys on.
Where
I'm like, I wanted
the athletes
so
that didn't qualify.
Sure.
That was their stage. I mean, as far as money raised, it wasn't anywhere close to some of the events we've run, but it was like by far, like if any person who's been to any event we've ever done, that was their number one. Like, so cool. I mean, Luke Wilson, like, he's in there,
because it was like obviously prior to everything going on now, but we were in this small brewery area. We set up the lifting platform. Jason, who we were talking to last week, brought down a brand new Arsenal bench press and deadlift platform, and it was just like 100+ people packed into this room the size of the studio awesome. Right now.
Yeah. So good.
And just like whose ever turn it was, everyone was going nuts, screaming. And you just saw it, like the excitement of the athletes was just like, it was so infectious. And
the appreciation of the parents, like the parents coming up to you after and like, like hugging you or like just saying like what you did, and you're just like, oh, like you had no idea the impact. And then that's what the addictive part of helping people is. I'm sure you guys are seeing that.
Yeah, it's that you look, Hazel's the driving force, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at her, or a person with a disability or somebody who's different than you, and you see potential, and you see that they can, and you see that you may have to provide them like some support and some accommodation to like help them to be successful. But like that mindset piece of just looking at someone and going like, yeah, you're going to do this. Like why can't you do this? Mm-hmm. That is everything to me as a parent, and to us, like to look at Hazel and go like, yeah, why shouldn't you be here? And why isn't there space for you? And why don't you have a seat at the table? Like, that is everything, to just provide that opportunity, right? Like, inclusion is opportunity. We can't just say inclusion and then not provide any opportunities for it, right? You can't have one without the other. So that's why,
it's a big part of what we're trying to do is the inclusionary aspect of making sure that there is space for any of the athletes or any individual to be able to go anywhere without having to have that holy shit factor where they walk through the door and somebody goes, holy shit, they have Down syndrome. What am I supposed to do? Right. And we're trying to like alleviate that, to be able to say is if you need support, if you need something, and that's part of what we're doing at all levels and what you guys have done with it's like, get them in here and we'll figure it out.
You can
right?
see the barriers being broken as to what, like, I think it's perceived that limited, right? And then you see people do these incredible things. And I was talking to Tony earlier about a guy I grew up with, same age as me, from my hometown in the Sioux. And he was a member of the Sioux ski runners. He raced downhill in the Special Olympics. He was a medalist a few times. And there was an article that came out this summer. He did what exactly was it? I have it written down so I don't butcher the name.
No, it's all right.
But it's the Great Canadian Running Challenge. So he set out, it was created by a Northern Ontario lady. And you set out for the summer and it's a 1,000-kilometer run. No matter how you do it, you break it down through the thing. And I was just reading the article. As of August 28th, he had accomplished his 1,000-kilometer run throughout the summer.
Amazing.
Right? And it was just a feat for him where he could no longer train inside the gyms because of things going on. And it's just like right then and there, it's just like these are the barriers that don't necessarily exist.
Right.
And they're put up a lot of the times for varying reasons, right? Support, safety, education, whatever the case may be. But those are things that can be fixed. Those are things that can kind of be addressed.
And then John, if you heard his podcast last time with you guys, like he talked about the adaptive program that we run at all level. Like he said he was scared the first time that we were like, I walk into him and I'm like, I got an idea. First he tells me I'm going to join a CrossFit gym. I was like, why would you do that? That seems extreme.
That. Yeah.
That seems extreme. Anyway, fast forward to, we launched the foundation and John is like he's such a stellar guy. He's like, anything we can ever do to support your foundation, let us know, immediately. Right. So a year passes and I have this idea and I go into John and I'm like, how about we do a program where we have all these people with different abilities, like mainly Down syndrome because we're in that Down syndrome community, but like, let's have this program, right? He's like, yeah, that sounds good. I mean, CrossFit is adaptable, it's scalable, it's modifiable, it's for everybody, right? CrossFit is for everybody. Let's do it. So then we do it and he admits, which I love. I love honesty. I just want you to tell me where we stand at all times. And he's just like, I'm scared, I'm intimidated. I don't know. But you know what? Like it didn't matter at all. Like it didn't matter at all. They came in, 4 athletes came in, their parents came in, the parents were so happy. Like the athletes were happy. They were kind of like, what's going on? What are we doing? They took feedback well from John. He did amazing. Like he crushed it. Like he knows our athletes so well. It's like he is tuned into them. And I'm like, sometimes he'll say things and I'm like, how did you know that was like, and he's so good. And so these athletes, some of them have been with us for 2.5 years now. I mean, they are killing it in the gym.
Well,
they're killing it in the gym. They're part of the gym. They are members of the gym like anybody else. And so that was a biggest thing for us, on behalf of the foundation. We wanted to make sure it was an inclusionary environment and truly inclusionary, not a segregated class for people with special needs to come in, 1 hour a week to do their like whatever they're doing, which is fine. That's totally fine. But that's just not what we were wanting to build because that exists already, right? Lots of that exists already. And so we're trying to like break down the barriers a little bit and go like, why can't we all be together? Why can't the people with special needs or disabilities be in with the rest of the class? Like, why can't we have that model? And so we've worked the last 2.5 years to perfect that model. And I don't think it's perfect, but I think we're working on it.
So why can't we take that and run that across all of Essex County?
Exactly.
Like we have 20 something gyms in our corner
Exactly.
now. And I know one of the things with like the Special Olympics is it's a great foundation, but it's not the inclusion. It's like the isolated that you're talking about, which is also important. I think
totally.
hang out with, with kids that are like you and like, athletes that are like adults that are like you so that you, but also
and physically,
but also probably the rest of your life, other than that hour, you're hanging out with people that are a little bit different than you. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the adaptability towards their becoming adults,
right.
It's almost the same as like the racism with the police and, the black community. It's like, I hang out with all white people and you hang out with all black people. We don't quite understand each other.
Right.
And I think like, so why can you not, like with the Special Olympics where I was going was like, we've offered to have them in here, but it's too far,
Yes.
right? But it's not too far for the kid down here or the adult down there or
Right.
the student over here.
And it's not like
So
you get a
if we can
plot
get
for-
everybody everywhere,
to be able to
right?
say,
Right.
here's where everybody is
Exactly.
now. Let's match them up. And then
Because they've got to get there somehow, right?
That's
We've
right.
got to get, it's just like I wouldn't be driving my kids if they wanted to go work out at all level. I would be
Right.
like, too
No.
bad.
It's too
Yeah.
long.
Like, it's too far,
Too bad
man.
we don't
Like-
have-
Gym.
Yeah.
It's
Wrong
not.
gym.
You're not going to that gym. That's besides the point. But
That's secondary.
that's
But then
secondary.
how that transitions to everything, right?
You are not doing a goddamn muscle up.
How
did you?
Yeah, exactly. Why'd your dad knock you off the button? So, and I think it transitions to other things, whether it's ballet or whether it's baseball or whether it's football or whatever the case may be, is there's got to be a way. And it was a work in progress and still is. Like, we made a lot of mistakes at the beginning of trying to create this adaptive program to be able to say, what is it going to look like? And then lights go off and
Because nobody was doing it.
well, and there's
Or to our knowledge, nobody was doing it. So it was
Yeah.
like we were just kind of like writing the book as we went, which is 100% fine, And now, we know that there is an adaptive training academy, which is a branch off of, it used to be a CrossFit thing, but now it's a branch off of its own thing. And we were just in a Zoom meeting this week, and they're trying to get the CrossFit Games to host an adaptive category. So there's going to be 8
Yeah.
classifications for adaptive athletes to enter into the CrossFit Open, which is like everything for CrossFitters pretty much. But it's mainly how like the fittest man and fittest woman on earth and all these CrossFitters that they make money off this stuff, right? They make a living doing this, and it's never been available to an adaptive athlete. And I mean, adaptive by impairments, limb difference, cognitive, like there's all these categories and classifications that they're working on right now to try to get into the CrossFit Games. So like, this is a movement that's happening,
And I think part of it too is adaptive because there was we ended up going to Chicago to take the course. Like
Yeah, I remember
level
seeing
1,
that on
level 2. We
Instagram.
just went there, a couple of people that work out at
they're like in the
levels.
class,
'Cause
who's
they're-
got their level 1.
John's like, we're gonna go, and
We're
like,
looking
we're
around.
going too. So we went too. We got certified, but we found out that mainly it was focused on not the intellectual disability side, but on the physical disability wise, whether it's wheelchair, loss of limb, and all these other areas. So then we found too, even still in talking, there's like we just don't have enough information for enough people that are doing that. So we're
In
like,
the
there's another
intellectual
gap
category,
there.
yeah.
So now even still, there's an intellectual disability category of one of the 8 that are trying to get in. But we're trying to get in. Well, we were on a Zoom meeting to try to get in with these people in CrossFit to help let us be part of that process, because they really don't have a lot of info to be able to create it enough where they can just roll it out.
And
right?
they know that, and they acknowledge that 100%.
Oh yeah.
And we've been talking to them, off and on since we've been in contact with them, because they know we've been running our program for a couple years. So they're like, obviously we want to hear from you. So we're in the Zoom meeting listening, but it's just like, it's so amazing, right? Like that this is a conversation, and that we had a seat at the table in that conversation for classifications for the CrossFit Games for the adaptive athletes and categories. It's like the needle is moving. You know what I'm saying?
You must feel good about. I mean, Hazel's. What'd you say? 9?
Yeah.
So like 9 years is not that long, but like the progress is
Right.
there a little bit. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but are the schools, when we were in school,
Right.
if you had Down syndrome, you were in a class by yourself. They don't do that anymore, though, right? Like,
No.
you're included in classes.
She's included
and-
in her class. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
which is a fantastic step, right?
Yes.
Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because they model,
And we
right?
don't have to.
but not just for her, but for
It's
the other
good for
kids
the
who
other
also are
students.
also
Yeah.
learning that this is, this is acceptable. This is, we treat everybody the same.
And giving kids a chance to be kind and be, friends. Like, you talked about you just miss his friends. Hazel just wants to be around her friends, right? Whether you have, a disability or not. Like she
Wants to dance at recess with her friends, just like the rest of the kids want to dance at recess with their friends,
Yeah.
and she wants to give her teacher a hard time.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the kids want to give her
Yeah.
probably more.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm thankful that we didn't have to advocate for inclusion, and certain amount of minutes in her general education classroom. Like she just gets that, and I'm super thankful to the people who came before me that made that a possibility for Hazel. And the other thing about inclusion is like you can't have I don't know. You can have a segregated environment. It's not what I'm saying, and it's not wrong. If that's what people choose, like, I'm all about you choose, you do you. Like, whatever's best for you, you have to make that choice. But you can't have, in my opinion, if you take all the kids with special needs and put them in one room, and you take all the people that are Black and put them in another room, and all the people of color and put them in another room, and then all of a sudden in 12 years, you release all the kids, right, into this world of like employment and just like grocery shopping and everyday living and social life and sports and whatever. And all of a sudden there's a Black kid on the team, and there's a person of color on the team, and there's a kid with Down syndrome, and there's a kid in a wheelchair. Like, what is happening? You're going through culture shock. Like, we need to start this stuff when they're younger. And when we had our second daughter, Nola, it was like, that became so much more clear. It was like, wait a second, like, Nola is the one who needs to do the learning. Like, Nola is the one who needs to do the accommodating. And so am I. And so are you. And so is everyone. We have to stop thinking that people with special needs or people with disabilities who don't do it the same as us are doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. And that we need to make them more like us or doing it the way we do it. No, we need to let them do it the way they do it. And we need to support them and sort of redefine our definition of like what success actually is. Because I've seen people struggle at skills that I don't even think about. Picking something off the floor, walking across the room, and then somebody tried to do that for 6 months and then they finally did it. You think that's like, they're not better than me? They probably worked 150 times harder than me to walk across the room when I just get up and I don't even think about it. Yet we don't clap for that. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you need to do it better. Or now the next step is to do it differently or whatever. So it's like
we celebrate those accomplishments a lot with Hazel,
that's
right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
And it's you learn that over time, right? And and we see that with we run a speech group as part of what we do with the foundation too, and you see these milestones that are hit, right? And things like consistently saying a letter, like the letter D or G, right? And we take those things for granted, but seeing these individuals go through these processes and have these little milestones, like, it's awesome, right? Yeah. And it's a celebration, and we probably look like we're crazy half the time, but it's just like, it's so cool to see that it's rewarding, that you're like, okay, now what's next, right?
I 100% look like I'm crazy all the time.
Taking a little bit of a step back, so when exactly did the Chasing Hazel Foundation kind of start, and more specifically, what areas do you guys cover? Like, you do have your classroom visit program, and you have your education programs and the stuff with all levels. So what specifically do you guys, how did it start exactly?
Exact moment.
Yep. When did you say we're making a foundation? And
so that's what, I think I kind of got sidetracked, but originally it kind of organically started sort of taking place with like the college, where they offered up a space, like a childcare center, and we're like, okay, let's have a play group. And so that's sort of how it started. And then people started wanting to donate money to us, but we didn't have, we're like, oh, great. Awesome.
$100.
I'll take it. So it's like, I don't think this is ethical. Yeah. So then it was like, people started wanting to give us money and donate to the cause. And we're like, okay, maybe we're onto something. Maybe we need to look into this a little bit more. And so then that's when we got like nonprofit status. That happened relatively quickly, like 2016-ish. Mm-hmm. And then we functioned as a nonprofit for about a year, and then we got our charity, like our registered charity number, and that was in 2017. Okay. So and so it just kind of like the play groups kind of kept going, and we did those like once a month at the college, and it was a beautiful way to welcome new families with the young kids. It was just such a welcoming, like, natural environment, and so we met a lot of moms and families that way. And then childcare centers started to see who we were and learn who we were, like Early Years and Ontario Early Years, and just through connecting with people, they would refer people to the play group, and so then that way we would have like introductions, and then we would talk to them and see what we could do for them and how they were. And so then once we had that kind of established, I think, and then the charity numbers going, and it was just like, it all just sort of started happening. And so our other big thing that we do is World Down Syndrome Day. And that was kind of like, that was kind of the first thing that people were like, never heard of it, but it wasn't on the scale that it was. So like I have a friend who works in the public board school, and last year, I think it was, she called me up and she said, just so you know, we just got like a Center voice message reminding everybody that it's World Down Syndrome Day tomorrow. And she goes, and that was because of you. And I was like, okay.
March 21st.
Like I didn't realize. So every March 21st, we celebrate World Down Syndrome Day because it's the 21st day of the third month, which represents the third copy of the 21st chromosome. So every March 21st, we celebrate this. Yeah. I've said it many times. That's why I only tripped a teeny bit. But yeah, so we've like encouraged schools to wear socks, and like I've gone out
that's
and done
the big thing, eh?
Yes,
Fancy socks.
the funky socks. Yeah.
Very cool.
And so we brought some for you guys actually.
We got you guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that evolved too. Like I remember Jeff Casey from Snapped. He was like such a huge.
That guy was a guest too on here. He's awesome.
Oh,
he's just such an incredible
was
human.
Such a huge supporter. Honestly,
He was a
he
big push
forced
to get us
me.
going.
Yeah, he was like, "You got to do this. You got to do this right now. You got to do." And I was like, "Okay, am I ready?" He's like, "You're ready. Do it." And he honestly was so amazing. So,
You know what's crazy about Jeff Casey is how he like, us with the charity stuff. It is like, he guides you. He's like,
yes,
But he
pushes you to
Yes.
like do it.
Yes.
This
he
is
does.
classic Casey. He gets you going. He meets with you a bunch of times, and then he sees it taken off, and then smoke comes, and then he just goes away. Like he just goes into the smoke, right? And then he looks at it from afar. and
You're
that's
so
been
funny you
Casey.
say that. Cruise and Brews, I gave the big speech. There's like, 800 people in there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he like walked in, he hugged me, and then what? I didn't even know
That's
he
what he
was
does.
there.
That's the Casey, right?
Let's
So-
take a minute, guys. I'm going to read this in. Grab yourself a beer, Maddie. There's no way a kid from LaSalle doesn't need another one.
Facts.
Sorry if I'm going to advertise one of your competitors maybe here, but Stephen Kidd, financial advisor.
Hey.
Does your financial advisor take the time to really listen to you? Is your financial strategy personalized? Whoa. For you and your family? And will your financial advisor be there as your life and financial situation change? When you work with Stephen Kidd, you're a local Edward Jones financial advisor. He focuses on what is important to you. You'll work together and use an established process to create a personalized financial strategy backed by the advice, tools, resources to help you reach your goals. And you'll partner to help your strategy stay on track. Contact Stephen Kidd today at 519-734-8599. That's 519-734-8599. Edward Jones, member, Canadian Investor Protection Fund. That part always gets me. It's like it throws that one in there just to like flip me around.
He's only had 32 times to practice it.
I know, right? I get it right every other time.
That's all right.
All right, let's talk like some things that maybe we don't all know about. So I like found myself like when we hosted the Special Olympics, I kept saying kids over and over and over, man. And it was like I wasn't doing it on purpose, but it was just happening over it. And I was like trying to correct myself and caught in the moment. And I'm looking at Big Al, who's probably like 65 years old, clearly not a kid, right? Yeah. Hugging me every other like rep. Yeah. And I was just like feeling so bad. Like, how are you guys? Like, what do we do to like combat this? I think it's just more like it's more inclusion. Inclusion is the, you know, like it's like how like our parents said colored and things like that. Like that is like, we're trying to break those trends, and I'm not like a politically correct person or a hugely sensitive person, but there's some things that are right and some things that are wrong.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
And we work on that constantly. And before it was kind of like something where we would like, oh, I don't know how to tell that person, or I didn't know how to bring it up. And we find that it's just easier just to go so direct. But just do it with kindness to a large degree to make sure that first we always say is, the person usually that's going about it is they have great intentions in mind when they say things like kid or say whatever the case may be, right? So you just kind of correct them in a way so they go, oh shit, I didn't realize that, right? So there's a real easy way to do it as long as it's done, right away, so that way it can be dealt with right away and understood and better understood. So kid, it's funny though, like you said, is somebody's 23 years old, but a lot of times with people with Down syndrome is they look younger than they are. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of the tendency is to say those things, right? But I
think the fact that you call it out is the first step. I mean, you know that that's something that you shouldn't say, but you say it, then you call yourself out on it. I mean, you're going to break your own habit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, eventually.
And it's fine.
Except I do call you kid too. I call everybody everybody younger than me kid,
also,
but like
exactly. Like
totally,
I do the same thing because I'm older than the athletes that we work out with at the gym. So I'm like, good job, kid, but they're kids to me. Right?
Yes.
I'm old.
Yes.
So
But
it's like, this is the reality that we live in. But I do know what you mean, because like it does happen. But I think you're exactly right. Like you have to call yourself out on it. You have to acknowledge that it's something that shouldn't be said, or maybe isn't the most sensitive thing to say at that time, and could be offensive. And once you kind of sort of rewire your brain, then and then the next step is the inclusion, right? It's providing opportunities for people to see that they're not kids, and it's providing people opportunities to see that what we once thought were limitations for people really don't have to be limitations if we just look at it differently or provide a support. I mean, it's just, there's so much competence there, and people don't have to do everything the same way. Like if you look at an adaptive athlete with, like a limb difference, they're using things that we wouldn't use in the gym to help accommodate their success, right? But with a person with like a band, or, when we did that training, we were like doing, one arm bring rows and, rowing with sitting on the ground, just rowing, trying not to like use our hips at all when we're rowing. And it's things like this, like, or you're wrapping a ring around the rower if you have a single arm and you're rowing with one arm. I mean, those are all accommodations that are helping you get to where you need to be. But with an intellectual disability, I think it's a lot harder because those accommodations aren't so straightforward.
Right. Like I trained with a guy who had lost both his limbs in the war in Afghanistan. And he was, he was actually like quick strapping him, or ratchet strapping himself to like the rig to deadlift. But however, the cognitive part is there for him. Yeah. So that's right. That's where probably, somebody like me or Casey isn't realizing the disconnect between those two disabilities, right?
And that's the thing. And in the classification process for the CrossFit Games, that's the gray area, right? And it's like,
oh, right, because my friend would have kind of like still on a one up, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it provides like you don't have to accommodate for that.
Right.
It's one less step that you have to accommodate for. Or whatever, because I don't want to say that it's easy to accommodate anything, and it shouldn't be easy. And just because it's easy doesn't mean it's not worth it, right? Like, I don't care if it's hard. Like teaching Hazel's hard and parenting Hazel's hard, but parenting any kid is hard. I mean, we can't all just quit things when they're hard.
Yeah. Right.
We have to just do it. And so I think that the category for the intellectual, I think there's just just because you have Down syndrome, you're not the same as like, if I lined up 10 9-year-olds with Down syndrome, they're all going to be different. Yeah. Every single one of them is going to need a different accommodation in a different way, in a different format.
Yeah, we definitely saw that day.
Right. So it's not like you can't just go, okay, so we have our athletes with Down syndrome coming in today, and everyone's going to get this accommodation, and everyone's going to do this modification for the workout, and everyone's going to have this, it doesn't work like that.
But I think the common theme too is like, there still has to be an underlying, like, there needs to be expectation, right? To say is, okay, well, I expect you still to work hard, try your best. Mm-hmm. Like what drives me crazy a lot of times is like Hazel. Hazel is
all of our kids drive us crazy.
Oh,
yes. Yeah.
Hazel's classic, where she won't give you the time of day if she doesn't feel like it, right? So she'll just shut you out, and she's going to be
0 Fs.
Rude.
Isn't that any 9-year-old kid?
I don't know, man. She's next level.
Like someone will be like, "Hi, Hazel," and she's like, "Nah," and I'm like, "That's." So, and they're like, "Oh, it's okay." I'm like, "No, it's not okay. It's rude, right?" So,
but the other stereotype for people with Down syndrome, if we can just dispel that right now, is that they're always happy.
You know what? I was actually going to ask you that, because our only experience is I mean, I guess with law enforcement, I went to a lot of different homes and dealt with a lot of different things and saw the unhappiness or the families with having, but that's like, I think is, we picture it.
Yes.
We as people who have never been, hands on all the time, is like that is constant joy that we saw, like we were talking about the special lift and stuff.
So it's like,
it's not true. And I mean, if one thing was true about the stereotypes, I mean, if I could order one to be true, that would be the one. Yeah. Because she's a grumpy Gus.
She can be, yeah. So as part of it, it's just like, and then she's rude, and it's like, oh, that's okay. And it's not okay because she has a disability that she's allowed to be ignorant to people.
Right.
So
100%.
So we've got expectations, same as we have, like, we work with these different athletes, right? And we got, one athlete that she'll run through the wall if you ask her to.
John mentioned her in his podcast,
Yeah,
Julia Lane.
Julia.
She's breaking her own Special Olympics swimming records.
Right.
Like now she's broken everyone else's. Now she's just like going back to break her own records. Like she's amazing.
So she'll just go ahead and do that. There's other athletes that like you gotta push them, right? Where it's like, okay, we gotta do some push-ups, and you get, really? Yeah. And it's okay. You can sit on a chair. It's like, get going, right? So I think sometimes dispelling the idea that like they can't be pushed, they can't, and you got to know how to do it and when to stop, obviously. But there's still expectations. Like I expect Hazel to grow up, get a job, own her own home, be away from us, be independent, just like I do with Nola, right?
With some accommodations and support or whatever that might look like.
But it can happen.
Like we don't know,
So I've got that level of expectation that I want her to be a functioning member of society. I don't want her to be a burden on society as to what some people kind of think of them as. So I've got that kind of idea. So we're hard on her, right? We're hard on her to kind of do better and be better, just like everybody does with their kids.
Yeah,
I think that's where a lot of I think that's a parenting lesson for everybody. Where people go wrong is, you've heard me talk about this, is like my biggest pet peeve. My kid's misbehaving. It might be because he's tired and hungry, but as adults, we understand that. But to vocalize that and to make that excuse, is where I think a lot of parents were like, oh, he's just hungry. He's just tired.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're the same.
However, yes, I know that might be the case, but they need to know that it's not acceptable to do such, or not acceptable to accept.
Yeah.
100%.
That, and that's great on you guys, and that's amazing that you guys are putting that forth as like a constant, message to people, right?
Yeah, I mean, we
Social
don't.
norms.
Yeah, we want. Here's the thing: I don't want to raise a daughter, in life who's just going to think everyone's going to hand her everything because she's special. It's like, it's like you need to work for what you have, like the rest of us. Like you can't cut in the line because you don't know any better. No, if you don't know any better, then my job as a parent is to teach you, right? You need to wait your turn in line. Like you can scream about it, but you're going to wait your turn in line because it's not okay for you to cut there. And just because you have a disability, right? Like we're not giving you any free passes because you have a disability. We're going to push you to your limit and make the accommodations necessary to support you in that. Realistically, we try to provide her with the accommodations that she needs, right? Might not look the same as how I teach my other daughter how to do it, but it's still going to, in the end.
The end goal is the same.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It just may take her longer. Like my daughter Nola would say something like, well, why isn't Hazel speaking clearly? Right? Why can't I understand her? And it's like, well, okay, buddy, she's working on it. She's going to be able to do that. It's just going to take her a little bit more time, right? And we always know that whenever we're starting to get Hazel to try to do something different, right? We know we're like, all right, buckle up, you ready? Because it's going to be 3 months, right? And with Nola, it could be
she's
like
so stubborn
2
too.
days. Oh, yeah. So as part of it, right? So with Nola, it could take 2 days to be able to, simple things, ride a bike. Like it took Nola days to figure it out. She got on the bike and she was going. Hazel, just to get her on her tricycle, to move her legs, to get out of her comfort zone, it's a battle. Right.
And to feel comfortable with the balance. Like there's all kinds of things we have to accommodate for, right? And it's fine. Yeah. And it's fine. But yeah, so it's interesting anyway.
So let me ask you guys a question about the idea is to spread awareness and educate.
Yeah.
So me being a parent, how do I address this with my son? So we run into, somebody who has Down syndrome, or I guess Down syndrome, let's go with that. Any other impairment, I guess. But how do I address that with them? That's, what would you suggest? Like, how do I explain?
Yeah. And I just
like when they say might say, what's wrong with that
exactly.
boy or that girl?
Right.
So
like,
first you say
there's nothing wrong.
Right.
Okay. I got
the
that
first
part
thing.
down.
Yes.
Boom.
Nailed it. We're done. Drop the mic. We're out of here.
There's nothing wrong. But you still need to explain that there is something different. How do we
Something
explain
different.
that there's something different? Because then the problem, it will be what's wrong.
Yes.
Nothing wrong. There's something different or something
Right.
special. What do we
different
do?
is okay.
What do we do?
Right. I think we're learning nowadays that difference is great. Right.
Different
and
is
I think
good.
that's a big thing about it, right? So addressing and saying that like there is a difference and not saying it's don't worry, there's nothing.
No, go.
different.
Shh.
Yeah.
Worst thing you could do.
Worst thing.
Yeah.
Literally worst. Because then you're teaching your kids so much in that moment. Like, oh, we don't talk about that. That's not worthy of our discussion. There's so many things happening in that subtlety. Like, shh, don't. I would suggest doing it through like photos or pictures or something like in your own home. You know what I'm saying first? And so that your child feels safe, right? Because you want your child to feel safe to ask you these questions. A lot of times they're happening, if they're not happening at home, they're happening in the classroom. Kids are asking questions. Kids notice differences.
Oh, yeah.
And the more that we don't talk about it, and the more that we shush it, or more that we put, Johnny in the back corner or put Johnny in a different room at the school, that is sending messages, right? That is sending a very strong message. Like, this child is not worthy of space in this room because he's not like me. So that's why I don't love the segregated thing. I don't love that. I know that works for people, but it's not when Hazel goes off to the workforce, it's not a segregated environment, right? It's like she's going to be working in wherever. Let's say she's bagging groceries, right? Let's just say that's her job. I mean, that's an inclusionary environment. So if I start her off in a segregated room where all she knows are other kids with disabilities, she's not going to know how to function in that environment. And then vice versa, if we have all the kids with disabilities in a different room, when Nola goes to get a job and she has to work with the grocery bagger who has Down syndrome, she's going to be like, what's happening here, right? So I think like opportunities for inclusion, having the conversations when the kids feel safe, right? And feel that they can ask questions and that they're not going to be wrong. And, Nola asks all the questions. Like, she's asked me so many questions, and I know her. I think you have to just know your kid and what they're ready for. And I just tell her the truth, or I'll pull something up on Instagram, or I'll, show her pictures, or I'll read her a story, and I always just entertain her questions in the best way that I can, in the most honest way that I can.
And that's a big thing that like we're trying to do with the World Down Syndrome Day. And Steph's, she's been to so many schools around World Down Syndrome Day to be able to talk to a school, a certain class group, or whatever the case may be, to explain to them what Down syndrome is as a whole, to create conversation, not to just teach them and have them be done, but go home and ask more questions. So try to provide them resources as to where they can find out more information. And you know what is, there's tons of times, where Nola or Hazel or whatever the case will ask something I don't know the answer to. It's let's go find it together. Let's go get information so we can become better educated together. So I think it's a big thing to, like you said, make them feel safe, make them feel like they're not wrong asking the question, right? Like, don't be rude. You know what I mean? I think,
and admit when you don't know the answers.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
And then find the resources. So we're trying to provide resources so that people can kind of get more information that's easy to understand.
Yes. So I uploaded on the website like a package, like a resource package that anybody can go. It's like a PDF file, and there's like facts about Down syndrome. There's videos that people can watch, like for all age groups. And there's like a little description even on each one, like what age would be, beneficial to show your child or your class. I put myself out there, like I'll come and talk to anybody at any time. And I've had some really good feedback from schools and students and teachers who say that the conversation just keeps going when I leave, and that's the thing. Like, I just want to be the conversation starter, and I can't answer all the questions and I can't do all the things because I don't intimately know everybody, but I can give you the starting point, and hopefully, the educators or the families will take that information and take their kids' questions seriously and just kind of build on that and sort of make it more acceptable to be different, and just understand that, no, it's fine. This is just how it is. Everybody's different. And that's kind of how.
Not just it's fine. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Celebrate it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I guess, did that answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. No, absolutely it did. Let's take one more minute and then we're going to close this thing off. So this episode and every episode is brought to you by Murray Insurance. Speaking of great parents, these guys have triplets. They had some crazy stories too. This episode is sponsored by them, Murray Insurance and Financial Services in Kingswell, Ontario. They are Southwestern Ontario's #1 ranked Desjardins insurance agency by their clients and owned by Garage Gym OGs, Ian and Kara Murray. Ian and Kara's team prides themselves on many of the highest standards that the Garage Gym members have come to expect. Their expertise in their industry comes from over 100 years of combined experience. The best customer service in the industry also is them. They include concierge services, which is exclusive to their clients. They focus on their community, employing local team members, and investing back into the Essex County community on a continual basis. They are a one-stop shop for everything to protect you, your family, and your assets with the best policies in the industry. And if you combine your home, auto, and other insurance policies, they have an even better rate. Give their team a call at 519-733-2331 or check them out at murrayinsurance.ca. Awesome.
Well done.
So
Nailed it.
yeah, you
Well
can
done.
feel the eyes. I'm like, this is like the old police interrogations. They're gonna get hit by a
Do
phone
not
book.
get it wrong, or I'm going to throw something at
They're
you.
gonna get hit by a phone
All
book.
you
We don't
have
even
to
know what
do
he's
is
supposed to say, and
read.
we're judging him.
Just
So-
read. Don't go off
exactly.
script.
So
Be creative.
conversation starters then. So COVID, we are officially, as of 5 minutes before you guys walked in, shut down for 28 days. So I feel like that is
Womp
an
womp.
amazing time to actually start conversations and see how we can spread this to more gyms and offer more, almost said kids, offer more people,
It's okay.
offer more people
Yeah.
It's okay.
inclusion. And this is nothing
Just
to run. And I can
exposure.
tell you, like, one of the things, like with John Maxwell being scared, I was like scared the first time we hosted a few athletes came in here to train with us just on an FYF, and I thought I was gonna have to do all this work and like, but the members were like, come over here with us, like, and it was like, oh my god, this is like way easier, and our day went way better. So like, let's start that conversation. But in the meantime,
Yeah,
I used
and
to
you-
think too, like when we were pregnant and we thought, like, just for my own self, just to give you reference, like where my head was at. I remember staring into the nursery, like I was still pregnant, and we maybe thought she would have Down syndrome. We didn't know. I remember looking into the crib and looking at all the things we had bought, for this little new baby, and thinking like, I'm gonna have to buy all new stuff because like this stuff can't be for a baby with Down syndrome. Like you can't need the same things, for a baby with Down syndrome that you would need for a typical kid. And I literally thought that. And then I was like, okay, no, like that doesn't make any sense, right? And then you don't know what you don't know, right? You just can't. So it's like when we got this baby home, it was like, of course she's gonna be in the crib and go in the car seat and do all the things. Like it's just like, what was I even thinking? But that was my own thought, And now 9 years later, I'm like, whatever, say no thing.
Yeah.
Like
That's
I'm
where
just,
educating comes into it. It's
Yeah.
such a big part, right? And it's not that you didn't know any better, or you're naive to it, is you don't know
No,
exactly,
didn't know.
right? So it's just educating and spreading awareness and exposure, which I think
That's the
is
biggest
the big thing, right?
Yes.
And just your
100%
willingness
yes.
to try, right? Like willingness to try to give it a shot at whatever that inclusion looks like in your whatever, right?
In your space.
In
right?
your space. And you
whatever
know,
space you can control. Like
and that's all. Just give it and not doing it because you're nervous or scared or don't think you can do it, right? And I think like anything, you can do it. It just may look a little different, and it may take some effort, and it may take, but you don't have to do it alone. Like, call us. We'll come and we'll help out whatever it is, right? I'll go do some ballet and I'll get it figured out, whatever the case may be.
oh my gosh, where do we get that
That's
started?
right.
Can we put
Let's
that
do
video
that.
up?
Yeah.
That's
Do that.
But no,
all right, so guys, so how would, if somebody wants to support you or learn more about you or get involved at all, how would they get a hold of you?
We have a website, chasinghazelfoundation.org.
Thought you were gonna screw it up there. Like,
Yeah, I know. I was like,
do I need to Google it?
Google it for me quick. We're on Facebook, Chasing Hazel Foundation, and also Instagram, Chasing Hazel Foundation. That's pretty much it.
yeah.
Good. It'll all be included in the links below, as
Nice.
usual.
Nice.
Yeah,
I just want to say one thing. Just
Absolutely.
thank you guys for going the extra mile to do what you did with the Special Olympics.
Yeah,
Thanks for
that's
having us on. We'll talk all day about it, right? But it's a willingness for people like you guys to be able to kind of let us talk about it because
That's right.
obviously we want to. But we know what you guys have been doing outside, right? We know what we're doing for all levels, but seeing what you guys did for the Special Olympics and coming to see it ourselves, it means the world to us. It means a lot to our kids. She's a kid, so I can say kid, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
she's not, right? But nonetheless, it means the world to us. So I just really appreciate it on behalf of everybody because we all see it. Sometimes you don't hear it, but we do appreciate it. So
Yeah.
thanks for that.
And you
thank
have
you
that.
so much.
Yeah.
You make me cry.
Yeah,
Cry to the
it's
podcast. Cry everywhere else. Thank you guys. Cheers. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks for
guys.
It was a fun
having us.
night.
Super fun.
For sure. Appreciate it. Thanks.